What fun to be here. Thank you all so much. You know, for me, one of the things that's most fun about this is that I got to come with Sue, my wife, who's right over here. And we'd never been, I'd been to Traverse City before, but I'd never come down from the north. I'd always heard about these straits and about Mackinac Island and this long bridge, and so it was so much fun to drive down here and to see the water. And it was, the startling thing was how incredibly blue it was. It felt like we'd come to the Caribbean almost, you know. It was just astonishing. And then to learn that there are big pipelines, right? Just because that was the cheapest way to go would be to stick them under the lake. I mean, cheapest way to go for Enbridge, but think about what would happen to the economy of this whole region if one of those sprung a leak. Oddly enough, most people don't want to go vacation in an oil slick, you know. And think of the damage, and think of the damage to everything else around us. And so it's really good that you and to listen to Beth provide the facts and figures about what's going on here. It is really, really good that y'all are about this, and even better for us that it's the very first part of what we're calling summer heat all across the country. Sue and I are headed for Oregon tomorrow, and then on to Utah a couple days after that, and then Boston and Maine and Ohio and DC and Texas and on and on and on. These are the next 10 or 12 days are statistically the hottest days of the summer every year, if you average it out. And so we're committed to making them politically the hottest days of the year too, you know? Because here's the thing. As you guys are taking on these bad pipelines here, those pipelines are all connected to things. And that means y'all are connected to things. And some of the things that are connected to these pipelines are really bad. I was up last week in Alberta, in the tar sands country, with our friends and allies in the First Nations up in Canada, the people who are who have stood up the longest and most effectively on these issues, and who now, with Idle No More, are really beginning to make voices heard in the most powerful way. And we were up there for 3 days up in the tar sands country, and I'd never been up there before to see what I'd seen pictures of it, but when you get up there, it's unbelievable. They've taken an area of boreal forest the size of, I think, about Scotland or something, and they've just turned it upside down. And so far, they've only gotten out 3% of the oil that's up there, you know. But it's unbelievable. I think the technical name for what it looks like up there, the technical name would be Mordor. It's beyond belief. So you're connected to that and to that kind of horrible damage. And you're connected, of course, we're all connected to the damage at the other end of the pipe. Because when this stuff doesn't spill, when it makes its way down these pipes and into refineries and gets turned into gasoline and gets burned, then it spills into the atmosphere. That happens every single day. We've spilled so much carbon into the atmosphere in the last 200 years that we've raised the temperature of the Earth. We have trapped so much carbon that we've raised the temperature about 1 degree. That's the equivalent in energy terms of 400,000 Hiroshima-sized explosions every single day. That's how much extra energy we trap. And if you want to know how much that is, look at the Arctic. 80% of the summer ice in the Arctic that was there 40 years ago is gone now. We've taken one of the biggest physical features on Earth and we have broken it. If you want to know how much carbon that is, go stick a strip of pH paper in the ocean, because it comes out a different color than it came out 40 years ago. The ocean is 30% more acidic than it was, and it's making life impossible for those creatures at the bottom of the marine food chain. If you want to know how much extra energy that is, just look around the planet. Warm air holds more water vapor than cold air. That means that we've raised the temperature 1 degree, and the atmosphere is about 5% wetter on average than it used to be. That's why we see such crazy weather all the time. That's why we see floods constantly, week after week, all in the last few weeks. All across Central Europe, the Danube flooded like it had never flooded before. Then in northern India, they had monsoon rains weeks early on a scale they'd never had before. They think 10,000 people are dead in the floods in Uttarakhand. Then it was Calgary in Alberta. Ironically enough, the corporate headquarters of all the tar sands companies were flooded out. Then it was Toronto, Ontario. Yeah, but the problem was, it didn't just hit them, you know. It hit all kinds of people and creatures all over. It was Toronto 4 or 5 days ago, the biggest rainstorm in its history, and the whole, someplace now all over the world, this kind of imbalance every single day. So this is all connected into that. If we're not able to slow down this move toward things like tar sands, then the scientists tell us that 1 degree will be 4 or 5 degrees before younger people in this crowd, before Jane or before Chase or Brianna or the people who are doing so much work, before they're old people, the temperature will be, and things will be completely out of control. We got to save the Great Lakes not just from oil spills, we got to save them from carbon spills. The level of the lakes keeps shrinking year after year because it doesn't get cold enough most winters now to cover them with ice, and so evaporation goes on and on and on. But then you get huge rainstorms and the Chicago River reverses and it dumps huge amounts of sewage and on and on and on. So the good news is that we know what we need to do to stop this. Okay? We know what we can do. The technology is no secret. It's just we have to put it to use. Look at the one country that really did put it to use so far, Germany. Germany, which in exactly the same latitude as Michigan. I mean, Munich is north of Montreal, okay? There were days this summer already when Germany generated more than half the power it used from solar panels within its borders, okay? And that's not because they have endless sun, that's because they have political will. You know, there are more solar panels in Bavaria than there are in the United States. Think what a country could do that had, Florida and Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, California to generate power. Think what we could do here today in northern Michigan. Think of all the sun that's going to waste. In fact, you know what we're having here today? We're having a solar spill all around us, and we need that. We need that energy so that we can get rid of this other kind of energy and fast. The other piece of good news, even more important piece of good news, is that people are coming together in the most amazing ways now. You are connected to them too. Connected to people all over this country who are joining in this summer heat thing, or the people who are in Washington at that forward, and connected to people all over the world. 350.org works in every country on the planet except North Korea. We've had about 20,000 rallies like this all over the place. And it has, and this is important, nothing to do really with leaders, you know. It's not that I'm making it happen or somebody else is making it happen. This isn't like that anymore. We're in a different age when we're interconnected in the most profound ways. And so the movement needs to look a lot like that energy grid needs to look. Just like we don't want a few big, huge coal-fired power plants, you know, belching out smoke. We don't need a few leaders, you know, we need 1 million rooftops with solar panels on them, and we need 1 million people in their local communities doing the kind of organizing that people are doing in TC 350, that people are doing in Madison and in Wisconsin to stop the mining for fracking, that people are doing here in Michigan to pass this referendum to stop fracking in Michigan, which, by the way, is not some impossible dream, you know. So far in New York, we've been able to stop fracking. Vermont, where Sue and I come from, the first state to ban fracking. The province of Quebec banned fracking. The country of France banned fracking. It's not the same kind of stuff happening so many places. And here's the final piece of good news. You know, as things like 350 have tried to provide a spark, and as you've all have made it into a flame, you know, that flame is getting big enough now that it is really starting to make a difference. I'm starting to think, though I'm kind of a pessimistic person sometimes by nature. I mean, I wrote a book called The End of Nature, you know. I'm starting to think we may actually win this big fight. You know, 2 years ago, when a bunch of people here started taking on that Keystone tar sands, everybody said, don't even bother, this thing is a done deal. You know, well, you know, it may still happen. We got to keep fighting as hard as we can. But 2 years later, they have not built it yet, you know. And when I was up in Canada with our First Nations friends, they were saying, we can tell that you guys are making some progress because the banks don't want to give any money anymore to the tar sands, you know, because they know at every turn they're going to be opposed. And once people started talking about the Keystone pipeline, then what do you know? People started thinking about other pipelines, like the ones that have been under there for 60 years. They've been there that whole time, but it just takes bringing them into the front of people's minds. And then everybody starts to say, that might have seemed like a good idea in 1950, but a lot of things seem like a good idea in 1950 that don't seem like such a good idea anymore, you know? And so there's this movement. And the movement is the most important thing, and it's so important that you be a part of it locally, and it's so important that sometimes those local parts come together into something larger. And when that happens, beautiful things really start to happen. For me and for Sue, one of the high points of the day was seeing our friends Seth Bernard and May Earlywine a little while ago, who I think are going to sing for you in a minute. And we were over at Bliss Fest that they're running today. And there, you know, some of the bards, the kind of cultural power behind this movement, their music, Seth's song, about change has become one of the anthems of all of this, all across the country. You know, I said when I was in D.C., as Bill pointed out, I said, all I ever wanted to see was a movement. And I think there is a movement now. And I think if we grow, you know, we're not going to win everything. We waited a little too late to get started, and we're not going to stop global warming. It's too late for that. The Arctic's already melted, but we can keep it from getting worse than it has to get. And if you all do that, then you will have done the most important thing you could possibly have done. These next few years are going to tell the tale about the next 10,000 years. We've become a geologic force, human beings. We've become a geologic force as powerful as the glaciers that scoured out this country where we sit, you know. And so we've got to bring that power under some kind of control. Everybody said that we had no chance on any of this because all the money's on the other side. And that's right, money's really powerful. But when we get going, there are other kinds of currency. Passion and spirit, creativity. Maybe sometime you got to spend your body a little bit too. Possibly some of you have to go to jail someday. You never know. Okay? You never know where you're going to end up if you get into all of this. But those currencies are starting to mount up fast. And if I was the Koch brothers, and if I was Exxon, and if I was Enbridge, I'd be scared. I'd be scared. They've been left alone for a very long time. And looking at you all here today, it's very clear they will be left alone no longer. This fight is on, and you guys are a huge part of it. Thank you so much.